Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Generation Z and I'm your host Russell. What's going on? So this is the show where we talk about technology and other assorted factoids as they pop up. Speaking of which, did you know it was supposed to snow like a few hours ago? You know what didn't happen? Wasn't snow. Didn't snow. So that shows you the absolute infallibility of the weather forecasters. They don't like to commit anymore. They say, yeah, it might snow, but it might not too. We just don't know. They don't like to commit to it. Now, to their credit, some of them actually do get it right. But man, some of these guys, they just don't know what's going on. They're like, yeah, it's going to snow, but maybe not. It's like, why even bother be a weather forecaster? You know what? I can open an app right here on my phone. Let's see. I just open up my phone, go to my apps. Where is it? News and weather. Click on that. There we go. Now I have the weather. It's not that hard. So I mean, geez, people. So I don't know what their deal is, right? But it's like they don't want to commit anymore, and it's just like people just don't want to commit anymore. But that's how it goes. It's 32. That can't be right. It's not 32 degrees, is it? Let's see. Let's just see. Weather Underground is actually overloaded. They can't tell me what the temperature is. My app here says it's 32 degrees. I can't believe that. There's no way. Seriously, 33.4 degrees is what Weather Underground is saying. What my app is saying is 32. There's no way. No way that's right. They're getting it from the Weather Channel. I mean, wow. So it's 32 degrees in Sunny Daisy right now. The high is 43. The low is 21. For tomorrow, Friday, 46 is the high, 21 is the low. Looks like we're going to be seeing pretty much sunny days, some partly cloudiness all throughout the rest of the week, and we won't see any rain or chance of rain until Monday and Tuesday of next week, so that's good to know. And looking at the news right here, it says Putin orders military exercises near Ukraine. Could this be possibly a what should we say? Could this be a push towards Ukraine to maybe lighten up a little bit when it comes to the European Union stuff? Maybe they should lighten up just a bit. That's what Putin is pushing for anyway. It's great having this phone, by the way, because I can get the news right here without having to squint at the computer in front of me. It's awesome. Let's read a little bit about this, though. That's the president of Russia, of course, is Vladimir Putin. He says that, they say, the New York Times says that Putin drills ground troops at the doorstep of fragile Ukraine. In Moscow, President Vladimir V. Putin. Ooh. Putin really is like a Bond villain. And I'm not saying that to discredit Putin. I think he's actually done some pretty cool stuff during his tenure as president. He's doubled the GDP, he's halved the unemployment rate. Some cool stuff has gone on while he's been president. I mean, consider. Now, I'm not one who's going to, toot the horn for Russia. They've done some pretty crappy things in their day. But think about it. It used to be that, back in '89, they were broke. There was nothing to go for them. There was no use in living in Russia. There was nothing to go for it. But now, just what? How long has it been since 1990? It's been 24 years, and they're okay now. They're a first world country. They're making their way. And I think that's really cool. But despite that, Vladimir Putin still does look like a Bond villain. And he may be one, actually, considering he used to work for the KGB. He was undercover in East Germany. President Vladimir V. Putin ordered a surprise military exercise of ground forces in western Russia and air forces across the country on Wednesday, intending to demonstrate the country's military preparedness amid tensions with Europe and the United States over the turmoil in Ukraine. Russia's military put scores of units on alert at 2 p.m. local time for an exercise that is scheduled to last until March 3rd, the Minister of Defense Sergei K. Shoigu announced, according to news agencies. Mr. Shoigu's statement cited the need to test the readiness of the armed forces to respond to a crisis situation, including a terrorist attack involving biological or chemical weapons. Neither Mr. Shoigu or the Kremlin mentioned the events in the Ukraine, or why do they say that, the Ukraine? It's Ukraine, which officials here have watched with growing alarm, but the geopolitical message of the snap drill was unmistakable. Russia has refused so far to recognize the legitimacy of the new political powers in Ukraine's parliament following the flight of President Viktor F. Yanukovych on Saturday, and officials have denounced the actions of opposition leaders now in control. 2 days ago, Prime Minister Dmitry A. Medvedev said the turmoil posed a real threat to our interests and to our citizens' lives and health. In Crimea, historically part of Russian territory until the Soviet Union ceded it to the Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine in 1954, ethnic Russians have appealed for the Kremlin's intervention to protect the region and its population from Ukraine's opposition leaders. I think it is flag-waving, but it's more than that also, said Dmitry Trenin, the director of the Moscow Carnegie Center, said after the announcement of the exercise. It's a message to Kiev not to impose its rule in Crimea by force. Russia's western military district, one of 4 across the country, stretches along the border of northeastern Ukraine and includes the 6th and 20th Armies with tens of thousands of soldiers. The exercise will also involve the 2nd Army in the General Military District, as well as airborne, aerospace, and military transport commands. So they're serious with this. And that must be kind of freaky for the Ukrainians to have this massive Russian army doing their drills on your border. I mean, I wouldn't want the Russian army doing drills on the border here. No thanks, man. So that's what's going on over in Ukraine. The situation over there is still very volatile, although the Prime Minister has stepped down and he appointed the Minister of something or another as the replacement Prime Minister. I think it was actually the Secretary General as the replacement Prime Minister. How happy that will make the protesters, I don't know. But the situation over there still is not getting any better, not getting any worse either. It's sort of stagnating as just an awful situation in Ukraine. And I know missionaries there in Ukraine, and it really must be terrifying for them to have to live through that. I mean, there are people who are uninvolved in this politically. They have no interest in politics who live in Ukraine, and they have to deal with the protesters and the government too, just disrupting their everyday lives, which is something you just don't want to see. I mean, think about that. You don't want to see everyday lives being disrupted. That's just something that's just not right. You know, people go about their business. They don't care one way or the other about, who's in charge. They just want to live their lives and be okay. They don't want to be shot at. And this stuff happens and ruins all that. So it's, have them in your prayers, I guess. It must be freaky over there. But to move on to different news here. This is an odd story. And I don't know what to make of it exactly. I don't understand the position of I'll read it for you and I'll explain what I don't understand. Paramount sets lawyers on Top Gun frame-by-frame tweets, according to Torrent Freak. For a month, a Twitter account has been tweeting the movie Top Gun to the masses. But not like you'd expect. It's not like they're tweeting the movie in video files or anything like that. No, they're tweeting it frame by frame. You can post pictures on Twitter, you see. You can upload them. In fact, I did it just a minute ago. Frame by frame now, they're uploading frames from Top Gun. Now, most Hollywood movies run at 24 frames per second. So 24 frames represents 1 second of film. That's a lot of frames to have to upload, considering it's, a 186-minute movie, something like that. So that's a lot to upload there. Determined to shoot down the patient pirate, Paramount Pictures has just launched the first of what could be many heat-seeking DMCA notices. Back in 1986, of course, the movie Top Gun was nearing the pinnacle of cool. You couldn't get cooler than Top Gun. Think about it, you're flying around blowing up Soviets. You can't get cooler than that. And Tom Cruise before he was scary. With the Navy's elite fighter weapons school as a backdrop, the perfect smile of Tom Cruise to charm the beautiful Kelly McGinnis, and the bleached flat top of Val Kilmer to wow the masses, the flick tickled all the 80s boxes. Throw in the Kenny Loggins Danger Zone, and to those born in the 70s, it didn't get much better than this. I missed out on that because I was born in 95, but I get the idea. What was the pinnacle of cool to me? Because I was born in 95. What was cool to me? I'm still 18. I don't know. This stuff is still cool to me. I think this is pretty neat. I don't know, dude. Nearly 3 decades on, and to ensure that a whole new generation is exposed to Tony Scott's masterpiece, for the last month, Twitter account @55UHZ, that's @555UHZ, has been tweeting Top Gun to the world. But with a twist. The movie, which runs 110 minutes, not 180, I don't know what I'm saying, 110 minutes in regular format, is being relayed frame by frame in the JPEG format, a feat that could take months to complete. At the time of writing, The account has pushed out 1,525 tweets to the delight of nearly 6,900 followers. But as they ponder where best to invest a pair of much-needed aviator shades, the whole 1980s nostalgia trip could already be the verge of extinction. Now wait a minute, let's break this down. How many frames is that? For the whole movie of Top Gun, how many frames is in Top Gun? I have a calculator right here. Why don't I put that together? Let's see here. Let's just see, because I'm curious now. Calculator. Okay, so there's 24 frames per second, and there's 60 seconds in a minute, and there's 110 minutes. Okay, how do we break this down? Okay, we'll do 110 times 60. 110 times 60 times 24 equals, okay, 158,400 frames. So there's about 158,400 frames, roughly, if my math is right, to Top Gun. That's a lot of frames to tweet out, and he's only 1,525 frames in. This guy's got quite a lot of time on his hands, I think, to tweet out 158,400 frames of Top Gun. For real. I mean, wow. 158,400 frames. Okay, well, good luck to you, dear sir. And he's putting them out in JPEG format. This is a feat that could take months to complete. At the time of writing, the account has pushed out 1,525 tweets to the delight of nearly 6,900 followers. That's a good deal of followers. But as they ponder where best to invest in a pair of much-needed aviator shades, the whole 80s nostalgia trip could already be on the verge of extinction. Even though modern movies fly at dozens of frames per second, and this reenactment is struggling to get off the ground with a couple every hour, it seems that the lawyers in Hollywood have decided this Twitter account is an existential threat to their nearly 30-year-old Top Gun revenue machine. Because, you know, they're still selling Top Gun stuff. You can watch Top Gun on Netflix right now, I'm pretty sure. Let me check that, too. Sometime in the past few days, exactly when is unclear, Paramount Pictures sent a lone MiG-28 on a dangerous mission to end the rampant copyright infringement being carried out by @555UHZ. Of course, not really. They didn't really send out a MiG-28, but we can wish. So let's see. Is Top Gun on Netflix? Oh, you can search with your voice. Okay, let's see. Top Gun. Let's see. Top Gun. No, Top Gun is not on Netflix right now, so I may have to turn to Twitter to watch Top Gun. Top Gear is on Netflix, as is Act of Valor and Jack Reacher, the Tom Cruise movie. But no Top Gun, so that must be why it's being tweeted out. Sometime in the past few days, exactly when is unclear. Yeah. The plane, flown by a pilot from Kilpatrick Townsend and Stockton LLP law firm, dropped a single but potentially devastating DMCA notice on Twitter in San Francisco. It contained a chilling message. DMCA, of course, stands for Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And that act message read, I should say, "We are writing to you on behalf of our client, Paramount Pictures Corporation," also known as Paramount. Paramount is the owner of copyright and other intellectual property rights in the Top Gun motion picture, hereinafter referred to as Top Gun. No one is authorized to copy, reproduce, distribute, or otherwise use Top Gun without the express written permission of Paramount, the notice warned. Notwithstanding this, it has come to our attention that a user of your website, @555UHZ, is distributing the Top Gun film frame by frame via your website. The following URLs are some examples of the user's Twitter account, with additional frames being uploaded continuously. What followed was a list of URLs, each representing a slow but steady destruction of Paramount's near 30-year-old Top Gun business model. He's killing Top Gun is what he's doing, by posting it on Twitter for people to see and then potentially want to watch so they buy it on Amazon. How dare he! Paramount has a good faith belief that the use of the material in the manner complained is not authorized by Paramount, its agent, or the law. We request that you immediately remove all the Top Gun images from this website relating to the @555UHZ user account. The law firm concludes in tones that can only be described as Cold War-esque. However, it appears that Twitter hasn't been fazed by Paramount. The notice, which just appeared on Chilling Effects, has clearly been already processed by Twitter, yet none of the tweets listed in the notice have been removed. Claim dismissed. More tweets are going up every few minutes, too, meaning thus far, Twitter hasn't bowed to Paramount's request to remove all images from the account either. This could mean that there will be dozens of new complaints and an entire squadron of MiGs heading for Twitter in the future. Maverick, your country needs you again. But there's an update. Twitter nuked the account. Oh, Twitter. You wound me, sir. Twitter nuked the account. For shame. I wanted to watch Top Gun, frame by frame. I love Top Gear, though. Oh, man. Top Gear is a funny show. But Top Gun, man. I haven't actually seen Top Gun. I need to watch Top Gun now. No, I take that back. I watched it once when I was like 10. I need to watch it again. But I can't now. I can't watch it on Twitter. What if it's on Amazon Prime? We can hope. Oh, man, though. I mean, for real. Nuking that account. I mean, what's the harm, honestly? Think about that. What's the harm in uploading Top Gun frame by frame? Think about it. Just give it some thought for a second. What's the harm exactly? There's no audio, so that whole part is ruined. I mean, part of the whole deal with Top Gun was that the music was good. Now, and you get to hear Tom Cruise's succulent voice as well. His high-pitched manlet voice. But, no, for real, though. What harm does it do to Paramount? Honestly, it's publicity, because people of my generation may not have heard of Top Gun. Consider that. But now there's some exposure out there. People are following this account. People care. It's getting shared out there. So people see Top Gun and are like, hey, I ought to check that movie out. It's publicity. There's no such thing as bad publicity. If somebody went out there and took my show, right? I mean, he's not claiming Top Gun is his own property either, right? If somebody went out there and took my show, right, as it's being broadcasted now, and had tapes and passed it out to his friends or distributed it online on the Pirate Bay, I wouldn't care. That's good publicity. Thanks, I mean, I honestly, I'd feel obligated to thank the guy for distributing my content out there. See, this is the difference in the way of thinking between the old world and the new school. The old school thinks, yeah, man, they're using our stuff, we gotta stop them. Those of us in the new school, we get it. We get that it's publicity, and we think it's valuable. Like, if I download illegally, which I would never do, an album, and I listen to it and I like the guy's stuff, I'm going to be pretty inclined to buy it. That's just how it is. I don't go around and go, oh, I don't want to pay money ever. I mean, it's ridiculous. I pay money for movies all the time. I have Netflix, I have Amazon Prime. I buy Blu-rays occasionally. I mean, geez. There's no such thing as bad publicity at all. I mean, well, I guess there is in some cases, but if it brings attention to your movie, people watch your movie, then what do you have to complain about? If they're buying it, what's your complaint? I think they're upset, actually, that this guy on Twitter bested them. Paramount should have thought of this. Paramount should have been uploading Top Gun. I keep wanting to say Top Gear. Top Gun frame by frame. They should have done that. That would have been the best publicity stunt ever. Sales for Top Gun would have gone through the roof. Why don't they? It's a 30-year-old movie. They made their money back on it by now. What do they care in the first place? It's not like the guy's saying, this is actually my movie, and I'm broadcasting it to you via Twitter because I made it myself. I went in a time machine and got Tom Cruise from the past, and Val Kilmer before he got huge, and made a movie about airplanes and Soviets, which are totally still a thing. That's not what's going on. These people are dummies. That's what's going on. These people at Paramount are dummies. Man. I mean, what a bunch of morons. If I saw this thing going on, I'd be like, hey, thanks, bro. That's publicity. But these guys, they freak out. They're like, what? You can't do that. Can't believe it. Oh, what are you going to do? What's the weather doing? Let's look at the weather. It was supposed to snow is my thing, and I'm upset that it hasn't. Not because I'd have a snow day, which is cool, but because I'm a little bit disconcerted, because now I don't know when it is going to snow. Because they lied to me. They said, man, it's going to snow. It's 32 degrees currently in the wonderful city of Saudi Daisy. 32 degrees. It's 43s are high, 21s are low. So it's a mighty bit chilly out there. I don't think it's actually 32. I think it's a little bit more like 33 or 34 because it's definitely not freezing. And the high for tomorrow is 46. So, it's not looking bad out. It's just not looking great either. But you can get analytics on this. Yeah, 10% humidity. Ooh, 46% humidity, 10% chance of precipitation. There we go. Hey, that's pretty cool. You can actually look at the timeline on the Weather Channel. Huh, that's pretty nifty. Well, anyway, you get the idea. It's about 32 degrees right now. I get all enamored with my phone. I start looking at it and I get distracted. So a surveillance evangelist was arrested in California in a bribery investigation, according to Ars Technica. Yeah, bribery. I mean, that's not something that you see all the time. Usually bribery just gets through, like they don't even care. I mean, think about that for a minute. Bribery. Who cares anymore? Everybody gets paid for everything. It's not a big deal. It's like, oh no, he paid me for something. Well, according to Ars Technica, this surveillance evangelist has been arrested for bribery, or rather, in a bribery investigation. That doesn't mean he's guilty. It just means there's an investigation against him. FBI agents arrested a Mexican tycoon named Jose Suzumo Azano Matsura in his Coronado, California home on Wednesday as part of a political bribery investigation being based on captured emails, seized banking records, and covertly recorded conversations. Ooh, onto the table. The unfolding scandal is soaked in irony. Hazano is a surveillance evangelist whose company won a secret no-bid contract with the Mexican military for computer and mobile phone hacking and spying technology in 2011. I wish I could get a deal for computer and mobile phone hacking and spying technology. That'd be awesome. I would record people's phone conversations, then I'd broadcast them on the air for all of you, and it'd be awesome. But unfortunately, I don't have the right to do such things. The government does, but I don't. Oh well. Oh well. But he's the chairman of a company called Security Tracking Devices SA de CV, and is now chained to a tracking device on house arrest. So they're serious about this. He's on house arrest. When documents leaked to the Mexican press 2 years ago revealed that Azano's role in a massive expansion of Mexico's electronic surveillance power, the story developed into a national scandal surrounding the business owner's almost legendary political power. What received less attention is how Azano began an effort to expand his pull in the U.S. and elsewhere through an online pro-surveillance marketing campaign. He also started dabbling in U.S. politics, and that's what got him into trouble. Now, a pro-surveillance marketing campaign online, I can't imagine that would do too well. I mean, think about that. A pro-surveillance, I just don't see that taking off. A pro-surveillance online campaign. You realize, people online, a vast majority of them, I would dare to say, are pretty much against mass surveillance. How in the world are you going to pull off this campaign that's pro-surveillance online? I mean, think about that. Azano and 3 Americans who acted as his agents are now facing felony charges in an alleged conspiracy to illegally pump roughly $500,000 into local election campaigns in the border city of San Diego. So the Mexican guy, is he actually Mexican or is he just ethnically Mexican? It doesn't say actually. But this guy, man, he's pumping money into the local elections. Wow. Well, in just a second we'll be right back and we'll talk about this rampant corruption going on south of the border. And also we'll talk about King files to abandon the controversial candy trademark. So hold on. All right, hello. What's going on? This is Generation Z, and I am your host, Russell. So I was buying this book on Google Books. It's a time machine. Apparently, it's a free sample, and you can actually just buy the dang thing. Let's see, buy. I've actually never I've never purchased an ebook before. Okay, there we go. I guess it's done. Cool. Now I have an ebook. Awesome. Can I view it? How do you view it? Pay order receipt. Yeah. Oh, whatever. I'll mess with it later. This is a new experience for me, you understand. I'm kind of excited about this whole smartphone thing because I've never done it before. I've never had a smartphone before. So it's all new to me. It's new and exciting. But anyway, this is Generation Z, and I'm your host, Russell. What's going on? Make sure I don't throw my AAA card across the room. Here we go. Yeah, I was putting in my info just a second ago. I don't like that though. That's something I don't like about smartphones is that it asks you for your info every 10 minutes. It's like, hey, what's your credit card number? It's like, okay, I gotta use it to buy something. Fine. Hey, what's your address? It's like, okay, fine, I gotta use that for shipping info. Hey, what's your all this stuff? It's like, okay, come on, I don't need this, man. I don't gotta deal with this. I don't like it. I should have broke your thumb. Well, anyway, we're talking about this guy Azano. What's his full name? It's a weird name. It's not a weird name, it's a long name. It's a name I'm not used to. No offense to anybody who has the name Jose Susumu Azano Matsura, but it's hard for me to read, is the whole thing. That's my deal. But he's being brought up on bribery charges. He's actually on house arrest. You see, Azano and 3 Americans who acted as his agents are now facing felony charges on alleged conspiracy to illegally pump $500,000 into a local election campaign in the border city of San Diego. Now that just shows you how corrupt the political system is. Azano's case, the Azano case, illustrates how officials around the world must exercise skepticism not only towards new surveillance technologies, but also toward the shady contractors hawking spy products. See, that's the other thing. His company, what is it? Security Tracking Devices, or STDI. It's a company that sells surveillance equipment, and he actually has a pro-mass surveillance campaign online. Yeah, online. How does he pull that one off? I don't know. But Security Tracking Devices, or STDI as it has more recently been branded, aspires to be a global go-to company for surveillance technology. In addition to its Mexico City headquarters, STDI's website, hidden behind an under-construction front page, advertises offices in Singapore, the United Kingdom, and the United Arab Emirates. Wow. Azano's public biography further describes his company security systems as being in high demand in Europe, the Middle East, and Latin America, probably by the drug cartels. I mean, think about it. The Russian morphine hawkers, the Middle East opium guys, and the Latin American cocaine dealers. That's probably why they wanted security services, so they can monitor rivals. But, I'm using pure speculation here. As the Electronic Frontier Foundation explained in 2012, leaked Secretariat of National Defense contracts revealed that Azano's company provided Mexico with an arsenal of invasive eavesdropping technologies, including systems capable of extracting text and multimedia messages, contact lists, agenda registries, email monitoring, voice interception, background sounds, and room monitoring via microphone activation. One of the contracts covered a cyber espionage program, allowing the government to access a person's computer and monitor the login and log-off screensaver in operational hours to study the behavior routines of the target or intruder. The company also offers intelligence command centers, mass voice data analysis, and various cyber defense products. According to STDI's recently deleted LinkedIn profile, the company also offers access to intelligence reports and IBM's iBase watch list database that is pre-populated with more than 1.3 million high-risk profiles linked to 8.5 million sources and 24,500 passports. Wow. So that's the service that this guy was offering. The Electronic Frontier Foundation joined the calls for greater transparency in Mexico as the country sought to expand its surveillance apparatus with financial help of the U.S. State Department. Now transparency may come in the form of the criminal investigation, and it's unclear how that will shake out for Azano's business ambitions. Yeah, if you're under house arrest, it's a little hard to run a business. I can tell you firsthand. I remember when I was under a house arrest, and I couldn't do jack. So I was very happy to have this to finally get out of house arrest, because that was not fun actually, and I'm glad I got out of that. But anyway, enough said about that. No, actually, it wasn't under house arrest. I'm kidding. I'm too young to be under house arrest. They would have put me in juvenile detention. Over the last few years, though, Ozano has set his sights on the U.S. and municipal-level governments in particular in an attempt to establish credibility as a homeland security guru. He has published numerous commentaries, press releases, and stories, that's in quotes, stories, across the web on credible-looking but dubious, if you look a little harder, news sites. Ozano played the role of Big Brother propagandist with article titles such as "No Need to Fear Government Tracking" and "Susumu Ozano Addresses Fears of Modern Surveillance Tech." Wow. Who in the world is going to fall for that is my question. I mean, who's going to go for that? Like, oh yeah, now that he says it, I'm not really scared of tracking methods. I mean, who in the world is so gullible as that? Now that this guy tells me I don't need to be afraid, I don't need to be afraid. I mean, come on, dude. In one piece called Trickle-Down Technology, he's using Reaganomics now, Ozano expresses contempt for American concepts of privacy. For the average citizen, the cell phone now serves the purpose of both tracker and wireless data collection devices, as well as the less important function of phone. It is the perfect tool for a society that has come to depend more and more on surveillance, whether we like it or not. The government, it should be noted, did not hand out smartphones to American citizens and demand they keep detailed logs of every move. Americans did that themselves. People were excited about doing it, constantly seeking new ways to advertise where they were, what they were doing, and with whom. Can people really blame governments and advertisers for taking advantage of their actions, or do people accept that these are the repercussions of naivete and a nation caught up in a love affair with new technology? And he has a point, and I'm guilty of the same thing, tweeting about where I am and what I'm doing. But only because I think maybe it's interesting to somebody or to make a joke about it. But, yeah, I mean, the dude's got a point. Not that I agree with him, but he does have a pretty good point in that it's hard not to spy on us when we keep telling people where we are. I mean, I could spy on somebody just by watching their Foursquare account. In fact, actually, the Phone Losers of America, which are a really funny group of people, if you look up the PLA, Phone Losers of America, oh man, they're hilarious. They've done stuff throughout the years. I have 2 of their books. Funny stuff, man. But anyway, I tried to have them on the air one time, but the phones were being dumb. But whatever, I'll try again some other time. But they did one thing where they got Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple Incorporated. Yeah, the Apple Incorporated. They called him up at a restaurant. They called the restaurant because he signed in on Foursquare. And then they called the restaurant and asked to talk to him. The waiter handed the phone to him. They talked to Steve Wozniak for like 5 minutes. And they gave him a free burrito because they told the waiter that, give him a free taco for his trouble, and the guy did it. I mean, it's funny stuff. It's really hilarious stuff. And that's what you can do, though. That just goes to show you can tell where someone is actively without even having all this government surveillance tech. You just do it like that. People say, oh, how do you know where I am? Well, I looked at your Foursquare account, And that's why I don't have one yet. Sometimes they give you a deal. It's like free drink if you sign in with Foursquare. They're trying to trick you. They're trying to coerce you into signing in with Foursquare. For me, I'd say no thanks. I don't like the idea of my location being broadcasted out to people. That's why I disabled location data on Facebook. On the Facebook mobile app, it says, like, why don't you tell us where you are? Hey, no thanks. I don't want people to know where I'm at. It's like, hey, why don't you tell your friends in Canada where you are in the United States? They don't care. They don't care where I am. I don't care where anybody is. They're talking to me. That's what matters. I don't know what the deal with these people are. It's ridiculous. Well, then this guy actually had meetings with U.S. officials, this Ozano character. There's an emerging criminal scandal, they say. No government is immune to corruption and graft, and that goes for the surveillance industry complex as well. Whether that's alleged bribery by red light camera vendors in 13 states or an InfoSec provider paying out kickbacks for Army contracts, in 2012, SAIC, the contractor on Oakland's Domain Awareness Center, agreed to pay a $500 million fine in conjunction with another kickback and fraud scheme. Often contractors caught in one questionable deal in one jurisdiction continue to operate elsewhere with impunity. That's why decisions over surveillance policy must be conducted in the light of day, not in closed meetings between politicians and suspicious contractors, some of whom will go to any lengths to capture lucrative national security contracts. Look at Blackwater or XE or what do they call themselves now, Academi? I don't know. It's all the same company. In San Diego, Azano and his cohorts are under investigation for bribery and circumventing prohibitions against foreign nationals spending money in U.S. electoral campaigns. The scandal has also cast a shadow of doubt over several officials who benefited from his funds, including the San Diego County District Attorney, who admitted she met with Azano at his home just before he started spending money to support her as a candidate. There is no evidence at this stage that the region's top prosecutor did anything illegal. However, what Azano expected in return for his investment, first for a mayoral bid, which he lost, and then her DA re-election effort, remains a mystery. So, what did he expect in return for his investment? He gave her, what, $500 million? Didn't do her any good. She's lost the bid for mayor. She hasn't, she lost her DA re-election effort. What's the point? In an effort with UT San Diego, not University of Tennessee, the only issue with the DA could recall discussing with Azano was his company's software in Mexico. According to the timeline, this conversation meant that Azano was likely discussing his deal with the Mexican government months before the Mexican public learned about the contracts through the press. Both mayors and district attorneys are highly influential in determining such law enforcement priorities. Azano's agents allegedly asked the candidate who eventually did become mayor to fire the police chief and replace him with someone from their choosing. Of course, Southern California is at the forefront of surveillance technology. As Ars Technica and EFF have both written before, regional agencies have embraced automatic license plate readers and mobile facial recognition devices with elected representatives, raising little or no concerns over the impact on civil liberties. Azano's style of backroom influence, even without an explicit quid pro quo, is one way this technology spreads around the world. Now, see, that's the problem, is this complacency that we've got, where people just don't care. And I've said it many times before, my contribution is I get the word out. That's my contribution to fighting the surveillance state. I get the word out there and let people know. This is what goes on. They're actually actively spying. This is not paranoid, Alex Jones, schizophrenic, running around with like a chicken with his head cut off stuff. This is real life. They actually are seriously, really spying on us in our day-to-day lives. They spy on our license plates. They spy on us with facial recognition. It's just like Minority Report, but it's real. It's freaky. There is no way to get off the grid anymore. You walk off the grid, too bad. They'll just scan your face and your license plate. You can't wear a mask all the time, unfortunately. One can't hide his identity 24/7. I mean, you can't even live your life without a social security number. Well, you can, but it's not easy. You have to get a sworn affidavit that shows that you are who you are. They still want papers proving that you are who you are, so that you have them in the system. That's what it's up, man. That's what it's all about. They want you in the system, so you can be a good little taxpayer. Because that's what it comes down to, really, is they want you to pay your taxes, and they want you to be a good citizen. No thanks, man. I haven't paid taxes except for sales tax in ever. Why would I? I haven't gotten a paycheck or anything like that, so why bother? I'm not going to file for something I don't have. Well, at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, they're often asked the question, why should anyone care about their surveillance in other countries? Well, here's answer number 645. The contractor that secretly sells electronic surveillance products in one country may also be secretly and illegally influencing elections in yours. Note, in 2012, before Azano's ties to surveillance deals were clear, the writer of this article reported on a super PAC funded by a shell company run by Azano. This report was cited in the criminal complaint against the three men charged in the case. So this stuff is for real. There's no avoiding it. This is how it is. And, I fear for my life sometimes when I talk about this stuff, I mean, they might burst down the door and say, get on the ground, you're talking about stuff that's a dissenting view. You never know, man. It's freaky stuff that goes on out there. Will that watch your face with facial recognition? And then the stuff that gets reported is actually kind of minor compared to what actually goes on for real. I mean, think about how they were giving officers those LiDAR devices so that they could scan people's cars and charge them with tickets for speeding without ever pulling them over, because it's too dangerous for the officer to pull them over. I mean, come on, they've been doing it for years. But that's just one tiny contribution to the larger product of mass surveillance. Now they can charge you money for it too. We're going to spy on you, and we're going to charge you for it as well. They already do with taxes, but still. It's just a slap to the face even more. It's ridiculous. But we go with it, because what else are we going to do? You can't just stop paying taxes, they'll shoot you. You can't stop paying taxes, they'll take your stuff away from you. They'll steal from you. It's like you can't even be a homeowner anymore because you're renting from the government. Essentially, you have to keep paying property taxes that can never be paid off. That's not buying a house, that's renting it. You don't own your property if you have to keep paying for it, now do you? And I'm not talking about utility bills or anything like that. That comes along with it. But I'm talking about your own property that you paid money for. It's not tax exempt. You're going to pay taxes on that for the rest of your life. So that's rent, is it not? You buy a property, you got to pay money for it. That's rent. You're renting your property from the government. They're the ones who own the homeland, not you, unfortunately. And I'm not saying this is a good thing, not even close. I'm saying this is an awful thing that should not go on, where you have to pay taxes on something that you own, and you have to continually pay these taxes. What is the sense in that? What gets me, though, this is what really gets me, is that a lot of our taxes, especially in Georgia where I live, those taxes go towards the public school system, which I was never a part of. Never was I part of the public school system. I never set foot in a public school. I was too cool for school, man. I never even set foot in a high school. Not one time. So why should I have to pay money for other kids to go to school? Why? It's ridiculous. It makes no sense whatsoever. Why should I pay for that? No thanks, man. I'll just pass on that one, if you don't mind. It's actually, if you think about it, it might even be cheaper to just rent a property, like from a renter, or from a landlord, I should say, because then you don't have to pay property taxes. You just sort of pay into it, not completely, but into it. Might even be cheaper that way, because you get utilities and you get all your stuff fixed and all this. I mean, jeez. You're in a messed up world when it's actually better to rent than to own your own property. Man. Well, anyway. King is filing to abandon the controversial candy trademark in the U.S., according to Ars Technica. Yeah, King is the owner of the Candy Crush saga, and they made the thing, they made the game. And they trademarked the word candy in the U.S. So and they're only selectively going to oppose people. They're only selectively going to file for copyright infringement. But the thing is, candy. Think about Candyland. That game's been around forever, but now they're trademarking the word candy in the title of the game. Uh-oh. According to Ars Technica, it seems that Candy Crush saga maker King may have realized it reached too far in trying to claim a trademark on the common dictionary word candy. The company confirmed today that it filed for express abandonment of the trademark, as noted by a request on file with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Good. It may seem like a victory for those who opposed King's attempt at taking hold of a common word, I should say, whose use in games actually predates Candy Crush Saga by a good margin, including those behind the hilarious Candy Jam game-making competition. Yeah, I mean, think about it. But King says that the withdrawal only came because the company was able to acquire an older, more specific trademark that it feels gives the game adequate protection. King has withdrawn its trademark application for Candy in the U.S., which we applied for in February 2013 before we acquired the early rights to Candy Crusher, the company said in a statement. Each market that King operates in is different with regard to intellectual property. We feel that having the rights to Candy Crusher is the best option for protecting Candy Crush in the U.S. market. Yes, they're two different games, and Candy Crusher came first, and it's hard to explain, but they're being dumb. This does not affect our European Union trademark for Candy, which we continue to take all appropriate steps to protect our intellectual property. King's acquisition of Candy Crusher, of the Candy Crusher mark, caused a stir of its own earlier this month when that trademark was wielded to shut down a similar game called Candy Swipe, even though Candy Swipe predates King's Candy Crush saga by a couple of years. King was able to use the 2004 trademark it acquired for Candy Crusher to go after the title. Candy Swipe is still available on the Google Play Store, however, where it has been flooded with 5-star reviews, most of which highlight the trademark issues surrounding the game. King also continues to back a legal opposition to indie game maker Stoic Studios over the title of its game, The Banner Saga. Stoic said last month that it would be going forward with a sequel for the game as planned, despite King's legal attempts to stop it. We won't make a Viking saga without the word saga, and we don't appreciate anyone telling us that we can't. Yeah, that's kind of the issue here, is that Banner Saga is completely unrelated to Candy Crush. There is nothing similar between those two games. And yet, King is going after him for it. They're saying, you can't use our IP. They're not using your intellectual property. They're using a word. They're using a word. You can't ban the use of a word. I mean, geez, it makes me want to write a book or something and just fill it with the word Candy, Crush, and Saga strategically throughout the book, and have the title of the book be Saga of Candy Crushing, something like that, just to make them mad. You know, I'll publish it on Google Play or Google Books or whatever for free. I think that'd be pretty awesome, actually. I mean, think about that. How dumb do you have to be to release it, to go after people like this? It's not gonna work. It's never gonna work. Copyrighting the word saga or trying to enforce this. I mean, come on. The word saga is so old. In fact, there's actually a really good comic book series called Saga. Really, really good. And I love it, actually. What, are they going to go after them next? I mean, come on, people. But whatever. I mean, this is what you got to deal with. King. These companies, you'll notice, get kind of crazy. These viral games, I guess you'll call them. You'll notice games like game makers like Zynga, for example, the French, I wanted to say, studio that did Farmville and all these other games. They started to go after everything that had the word "ville" in it, or farm, like Farm Simulator. I'm sure they went after them. You know, it got to the point where it was just stupid. It's like, you can't go after people for using a word in the title of a game. And I know you're probably laughing, saying, "Oh, you're talking about video games. Come on, get with the grown-up stuff." Well, yeah, but you know, this kind of goes along with grown-up stuff too, and I'll tell you why. Because this paints a broader picture. We're not talking about just copyright infringement when it comes to games. We're talking about copyright infringement in general. The rulings on this determine the rulings on other things too. If a company can get so big that it can just call out indie developers for using a word and then winning in court, that tells you something about our copyright system that's completely broken. And it's not the fault of King. I'm not going to blame them because they're abusing a system that's too easy to abuse, honestly. The system should not be this easy to abuse. The copyright system is completely broken as it exists. And that's just how it is. Sorry, that's just how it is. We need to rewrite the copyright system. It's broken. It doesn't work. It was not designed to work with this modern era, unfortunately. But whatever. In just a few minutes, we're going to talk about DARPA, which is funding research into a network-based interpretation of dreams, according to Slashdot. And Bitcoin value has plummeted as Mt. Gox disappears with $375 million in coins, according to Extreme Tech. What is going on with Bitcoin? Well, we'll find out in just a few minutes, so hang on with Generation Z. Hey there, we're back. What's up? This is Generation Z. I am your host, Russell. We've entered into the third quarter of the show, and the third quarter is where the game can come to a drastic change. We were just talking about Candy Crush Saga and how the King Games, the company behind it, is being kind of ridiculous with their copyright infringement notices and all these sorts of things. You know, we don't need to get into it again, but man, look into that if you have time. It's just crazy. I'm sure we'll bring it up again, too, as things progress, because undoubtedly they'll do something else ridiculous to make sure that I talk about it again. Well, anyway, DARPA is funding research into a network-based interpretation of dreams, according to Slashdot. Yeah, network-based interpretation of dreams. So they're trying to play Daniels, what they're doing. DARPA is. Well, despite the universal experience of dreaming, psychologists and neuroscientists have little understanding of the purpose of its mechanisms, or how it varies from one culture to another. So new approaches to oneurology, or dream research are always welcome. Now a DARPA-funded research team is using network science to analyze dreams for the first time. Dreams have become amenable to network studies because dream reports and their interpretations are now widely available on the web in repositories such as UC Santa Cruz's Dream Bank. The DARPA team crawled these databases in English, Chinese, and Arabic for symbols that appear in dreams and their descriptions. They then created a network for each language by treating symbols as nodes and linking them to other nodes with similar descriptions. They then searched the networks for regions of more densely connected nodes that form communities. For example, in English, symbols such as ladder, hill, and goal form just such a community, representing achievement after struggle. Finally, they compared the communities from different languages to look for similarities. The results show that dream symbols seem to be connected in similar ways, regardless of the cultural background of the dreamers. That provides a new window into the cultural links between dreams experienced by different people in different parts of the world. So people from all over the place dream in the same way. Isn't that weird? It's like we're all connected somehow in this way. We all dream the same. Obviously our experiences influence how we dream, but when it comes right down to it, we dream the same way. Isn't that bizarre? Think about that. Some kid in China, you know, he may have a dream that has a similar structure to me here in Saudi Daisy. You know, isn't that weird? It's weird to think about. Different cultures, you know, we're so different in so many ways, but in this one way, we're connected. We all dream the same. We have the same dreams and aspirations. We want to achieve a goal, a personal goal. And that's something that we all share. We have a personal goal we're trying to achieve. Bizarre, right? Well, Bitcoin, the value has plummeted as Mt. Gox disappears with $375 million in coins. Oh boy. This is not looking good for Bitcoin. It's so bad, actually, that they talked about it on the news the other day. They acted like it was something that nobody saw coming. You know, everybody saw the collapse of Mt. Gox coming. I mean, think about it. They shut down for, what, a few days, a few hours, and then they shut down again, and they were down for maintenance. We all know it's happening. Mt. Gox, one of the biggest names in Bitcoin, though, according to Extreme Tech, appears to have vanished like a specter in the night, and a leaked document claims over 744,000 of customer Bitcoins, may have disappeared with it. The Bitcoin community is reeling and still trying to figure out what happened. The recriminations, conspiracy theories, and ranting are only just getting started. But one thing is certain. This is a wake-up call for anyone who thought Bitcoin would have an easy path to general acceptance. Yeah. Tokyo-based Mt. Gox got its start as Magic the Gathering card trading site. It's an interesting way to start. As the fervor over Bitcoin started picking up in the middle of 2010, the site rebranded as a Bitcoin exchange, one of the first such services. The Mt. Gox acted as a go-between for people who wanted to turn their Bitcoins into more liquid currency like dollars or yen. It also had its own custom wallet software that allowed users to manage their Bitcoins online. This, according to the leaked document, was where things went wrong. The cracks started to show earlier this month when Mt. Gox suspended withdrawals, claiming that there was a serious flaw with how the Bitcoin protocol verifies transactions. Mt. Gox pointed out that it was possible to essentially respend a Bitcoin by renaming the transaction before it was synced to the blockchain, meaning after it was verified. The Bitcoin Foundation quickly contradicted Mt. Gox rather, pointing out that Bitcoin was not at fault. The so-called transaction malleability problem was known, but isn't a huge concern. The Bitcoin Foundation blamed Mt. Gox's highly customized wallet software for exacerbating the bug. This may have been the thread that, when pulled, caused Mt. Gox to unravel. So basically, Mt. Gox didn't have the Bitcoins it thought it did because its software wasn't tracking them correctly. The stolen coins were gradually siphoned off from the Mt. Gox hot wallet, the coins being used to process the transactions. However, Mt. Gox should have had most of its funds in cold storage where they were safe from the transaction malleability attack. The leaked document claims that cold storage was also wiped out, which would mean Mt. Gox was somehow foolishly automatically moving coins into the hot wallet as needed, so their money was running out fast. The validity of the leaked information can't be ascertained until someone from Mt. Gox figures out, or rather provides, an update, but it makes the situation sound quite bad. Mt. Gox's wallet software issues have been so severe that the transaction malleability allowed 744,408 bitcoins to be stolen over the course of several years. Even after the big drop in value that followed Mt. Gox's issues, that works out to about $375 million. Wow. Can you imagine $375 million just going missing like that? Just, boom, gone. $375 million. That's a heck of a lot of money. And that's adjusted for the decrease in value, too. All we can say for sure is that Mt. Gox has suspended operations, and users of the site are skeptical that they will ever see their bitcoins again. Mt. Gox may be in the process of rebranding, according to those leaked docs, but there's probably no way to come back from this, even if the scale of the theft is smaller than reported. This is another opportunity to decry the volatility and danger of an unregulated virtual currency. There is no one to come to the rescue when it collapses like this. It also makes a strong case for managing Bitcoin wallets locally. And I agree with that. Mt. Gox's system of wallets was pretty bad. I mean, it was actually really bad. He shouldn't have gone with that if he did. I didn't. I had a local wallet, and it was just, ugh. Ew, it was bad. But, I mean, we all saw this coming, the collapse of Mt. Gox. We knew it was going to happen. It's just where and when, or when anyway. So, yeah, Mt. Gox, man, it's volatile, and now it's gone. So there's other exchanges out there. It's just, you got to recover from this. But still, Bitcoin is still worth more than the US dollar. I wouldn't call Bitcoin a failure until it falls to less than the worth of the US dollar. And it hasn't yet. It started out there. It was only 20 cents a Bitcoin, but now it's up to way, way more than that. So, yeah, Bitcoin's not a failure yet. It's just that it saw a little bit of a hiccup there. Now, I'm not going to say, hey, Bitcoin is fine, go buy into it. I'm saying Bitcoin is not dead, and it's not entirely to blame for this fault. It could very possibly have been Mt. Gox's fault. And it's just a bad exchange. So, we can hope that's what it was. But we do know that Bitcoin does work. Don't forget that. We know Bitcoin actually does really work. So, don't forget that. Moving on, though, another story from Extreme Tech, a 3D printed heart was used to save a child's life and to study a heart defect, according to Extreme Tech. Now, I've always said 3D printing is my favorite technology so far. What about 3D printing a heart, though? You can do it. Surgeons in Louisville, Kentucky have successfully used a 3D printed model of a heart to study the heart defect of a 14-month-old boy to save his life. According to surgeon Erie Austin, Roland Lang Kun Bowie's heart didn't have a single problem. It had multiple defects, many of which were difficult to see precisely. See, it didn't have one single problem. It had lots of different defects. So, standard procedures in such cases is to explore and repair the damage during the surgery itself. But Austin had a different idea. Two-dimensional scans of the tissue were difficult to analyze, but maybe a 3D model would be easier to work with. The Corsair Children's Hospital physician turned to the University of Louisville's engineering school for help and was able to secure the use of a MakerBot 3D printer. With the 2D CT data turned into a 3D model and blown up to twice the normal size, it was far easier for the medical team to see the problems that they were dealing with. Roland was born with a hole in his heart, with a deformed aorta and a pulmonary artery. Because the heart must be stopped for surgery, timing is critical. Not being able to see an organ until you open the patient up means less time for doctors to find and repair damage, because they got to find out what's wrong and then fix it. But the use of a 3D model for pediatric heart surgery is a first for KY, but it's not the first time 3D printers have been used to create models of surgical procedures. According to Tim Gornett, manager of the University of Louisville's Rapid Prototyping Lab, the engineering school has already worked with doctors to create models of tumors and spinal defects. The total cost of printing out the model on a MakerBot is about $600. According to Austin, the gamble paid off. What the 3D model showed was that he could make a tunneled pathway between the aortic valve and the ventricle, avoiding multiple surgeries and the need for more cuts. Roland is expected to make a full recovery. So this is why 3D printing is so cool to me. They use this technology to actually save lives. This kid might not have made it. I hate to say it, but he might not have made it without 3D printing. But they 3D printed a heart model. The doctors could look at it, figure out what was wrong without having to open him up first, and then they solved the problem. Now he's going to live. He's going to be okay. And that's why 3D printing is so cool. It actually saved a life. Without 3D printing, this kid may have died. 3D printing really did save a life. Obviously, 3D printing cannot become a complete substitute for hands-on investigation, obviously. The printed model is only as good as our own ability to see in the body, and while medical imaging has come an incredibly long way in the last few decades, there's still gaps in our ability to model certain systems, particularly inside the brain. The ability to build a larger-than-life scale model of a body part quickly and at a reasonable price could make more expensive exploratory surgery less necessary and improve the amount of time it takes to repair damage once a problem has been located. See, if they know exactly where the problem is, they can just go to it like that. They don't have to dig around and try to find it. Ideally, we'll see more situations where laparoscopic surgery can be used to repair damage as opposed to laparotomy, aka opening someone up. Laparotomy procedures are typically much longer to heal from, too, as compared to laparoscopic surgery. If better models can reduce the speed of, or rather reduce the need for such invasive procedures, the expense and difficulty of early 3D printing technology will pay for itself. Now, laparoscopic surgery is so much better than laparotomies. And like they say with laparotomy, it means they have to cut you open with a Y incision and all this stuff. It's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. With laparoscopics, though, they just dig a camera into you. It's a little camera on a cord, a little flexible cable, flex cable, and then they have their robotic surgery implements, and they do their work. And it has much smaller incision holes. It's just about the size of an eraser head in your body. You recover so much quicker because there's not a huge open wound. In fact, it heals up, and you probably won't even notice where it even happened after a few months. It's pretty cool stuff, right? I mean, think about that. Medical advancements are some of my favorite stories to talk about, especially when combined with 3D printing, and this makes it very much worthwhile, I think. 3D printing and surgery, man, you can't get much better than that. Saving lives with new technology. And we got to thank Brie Pettis and the MakerBot for this stuff, too. I mean, think about that. If these guys hadn't been around to come out with a commercial consumer 3D printer, this stuff couldn't be possible. You'd have to look to NASA for your 3D printing needs, or whatever university out there, MIT or Berkeley. So it's cool stuff, and I'm really happy that this went on. I'm happy they were able to save the kid's life. That's cool. Someday, if I have a heart defect, which I may very well, I don't know, then they can 3D print a model of it. That's what I was saying to a friend of mine the other day, like months ago actually. If we get in a horrible car wreck, and I'll be on the gurney, I'll call to the doctor and say, "Come here." The doctor will lean in. He says, "Son, you need many prosthetics. You need a new arm. You need a new leg." And I'll say to him, "3D print them," because that's how much I'm into 3D printing. I really want, if I have to get prosthetics, I want them to be 3D printed because it'd be cheaper. There's actually a little girl who couldn't walk, couldn't use her arms, I think, as well. And they printed out some prosthetics for her, actually an exoskeleton, just using rubber bands and 3D printed parts. And it worked good for her. And they could 3D print new parts for her as she grows. They could print out new parts as they break and just use rubber bands for tension. And there you go. She's all healed. It's cool stuff. Well, speaking of cool technology, this one didn't go so well. Google Glass has been blamed for a melee in a San Francisco bar, according to CNET. Yeah, I gotta be careful with that Google Glass because people don't usually like to have cameras pointed at them at random. Well, Google Glass is blamed for a melee. It's likely this story is one of the first of many similar incidents to come. A person walks into a bar wearing Google Glass and gets booted by annoyed patrons. Such is the case of tech writer Sarah Slocum, who also alleges she was robbed and assaulted. Slocum was hanging out in the gritty rock bar in Molotov's in San Francisco's Lower Haight neighborhood last Friday night, showing her friends the $1,500 Google Glass she had been loaned, according to CBS San Francisco. When she demonstrated the video function, two women apparently accosted her, and a man tore the wearables from her face, hence mayhem ensued. OMG, so you'll never believe this, but I got verbally and physically assaulted and robbed last night by in the city. Had things thrown at me because of some well, I won't say the word, Google Glass haters. And then some, I won't say that word either, tore them off my face and ran out with them. And then when I ran out after him, his redacted friends stole my purse, cell phone, wallet, and everything. Slocum posted on her Facebook page. She's obviously a little bit upset about this. Slocum got her Google Glass back, but wasn't able to recover her purse and her phone, according to CBS San Francisco. The point of tension in Molotov's was the fact that Slocum was possibly recording people with glass without their permission, an issue that has come up repeatedly since the web giant unveiled the device. Which is why we need things like ISIS, that's ICIS, that doesn't have a record light on the glasses, because really you don't really need that. Well, Google Glass is the company's foray into a wearable computer. The device comes in the form of eyeglasses that can record videos, take photos, chat, get directions, look up facts on the web, and more. Last year, a few thousand people were able to get their hands on Glass, but it hasn't yet been mass distributed. Even with a small amount of users, drivers have already been arrested for wearing Glass, and casinos and some bars have banned the device. While many people are wowed by the technology behind Glass, opposition against the device appears to be growing. One website, called Stop the Cyborgs, was founded in response to Glass and other wearables and the issues that they present when it comes to privacy. Wearable devices socially normalize ubiquitous surveillance, the site writes. That is, they create a society where we expect to be recorded, where every moment too is shared, documented, and data mined. Well, still though, it's citizens doing it, it's not the government. You know, it's different when it's the government spying on you for national security reasons or whatever. But when it's a private citizen, chances are they're not using it to collect data on you so they can arrest you later. I mean, I've incidentally recorded tons of people, not on purpose, never, but I've recorded people, on vacation with my family. I take some videos of my family while we're on vacation in Florida. I was down in Orlando. In fact, St. Augustine. What a nice place St. Augustine is. We were at the Castillo de San Marcos. Oh man, what a nice place. And I was recording them. Just walking around, having fun. I was getting some shots of them so we could put together a home movie, just normal family stuff. And I incidentally recorded some people, not to be creepy, not on purpose. It's just they were in the shot too. It's not to be creepy or rude or anything like that. It's just how it is. And, I can't be expected to blur out everyone's face. It's just how it is. I mean, there's surveillance cameras everywhere. So it seems a little bit weird to me that people get all riled up when there's a citizen with a video camera. I don't really care that much. I mean, geez. Now, see, people are going to say, well, that's kind of hypocritical, isn't it? You're against the government surveilling people. Well, yes, I absolutely am. You're completely right. But I do recognize that citizens have the right to record in public spaces. Now, it's different if it's in your own home or something like that. They can't break into your home and record you with video. But the law is, if you're in a place where you have reasonable expectation of privacy, they can't record you. But if you're out on the street, they can. It's just how it is. And probably you are without even realizing it. But, yeah, man. That's my take on citizen surveillance. And I think more people should have cameras. I'm not going to lie. Not so they can record other citizens, but so they can record cops and military and, different operations that go on. I think that's why we should have cameras. I have a cell phone now. I'm so happy to have one. I used to carry around a camera. In fact, I have it in my car right now, my Sony Action Cam. Tiny camera. I was showing it to the station owner, Confederate Mike, the other day. He was pretty impressed with it. This Sony action cam. It doesn't have a screen or anything, but you just press a button and it records in 1080p, and it's real nice. It's real small, it's covert. So I figure I carry it on me in case I get pulled over or I see some weird stuff going on. I just whip out my camera and record it. That's why everyone should have a camera. I mean, we all have them now on our cell phones, right? We just record what we want. It's like, oh, that doesn't look good, I'll record it. It's good, I think. But what do I know? I'm just some punk kid. What do you know about surveillance? You're just some punk kid. Well, hey, I'm a punk kid who cares about the future of society, so... oh well. But speaking of Google Glass and augmented reality and wearables, TechCrunch just recently did a hands-on with the Meta Pro, the augmented reality glasses with 16 times more screen than Google Glass, according to TechCrunch. I'm real excited about this augmented reality stuff. I just recently tweeted a picture of a model of Link from Ocarina of Time standing on a piece of paper with the Augment app. And that's some nifty stuff, man. I mean, you should check that out. Check it out on Twitter. It's at Generation Z1240 on Twitter, at Generation Z1240 on Twitter. And you can tweet me on that account and also on the email, generationz1240@gmail.com, if you want to email me. Either way, I'd be happy to get in contact with you if you so choose. Or just to say, hey, good show, whatever. You know, it's all good. But I just tweeted a picture, I think yesterday or day before, of the augmented reality app called Augment. And I've shown different people this app, and they're all kind of pleased with it. They're like, wow, how do you do that? It's just with an app. It's called Augment. Look it up. It's free, actually, in the Google Play Store. It's pretty neat stuff. But TechCrunch went hands-on with the Meta Pro. We talked about the Meta space glasses, gosh, like 6 months ago. So it's good to see that Meta is still around. Meta, the augmented reality technology company, has captured the attention of the gadget world with the launch of the Meta Pro, a $3,000 headset that aims to bridge the gap between fully immersive virtual reality tools such as the Oculus Rift and relatively more subtle wearable devices such as Google Glass. You can read much more about the Meta Pro, which TechCrunch named one of the best devices in the most recent CES conference in Las Vegas, at their article where they talk about it. And Meta is a company that I've talked about infrequently, not very much, but I have talked about it before. But this Meta Pro thing, $3,000, and it's seeking to combine the idea of the Oculus Rift, which is complete virtual reality, with the idea of Google Glass, which is augmented reality. So with Oculus Rift, you can't see anything in the real world, and with Google Glass, you can see everything in the real world. And the Meta Pro is seeking to bridge that gap where you can see everything in the real world and everything in the virtual world at the same time with augmented reality. I'm going to assume it has some cameras attached to it so you can record things and so the augmented reality can kick in. And that's some cool stuff. We'll talk about that in a second. And the weather, presently 36.9 degrees. It's a little bit chilly out there. Not near as nice as it was yesterday. Not even close. We're going to talk about these Meta space glasses, or rather the Meta Pro, I should say. Then we're going to talk about Rolls-Royce and their drone ship bots, which are going to rule tomorrow's oceans and shipping containers. So hang on, we'll talk about all this in just a second here on Generation Z. Hey there. I was just checking Twitter to see what's up. Channel 9, at News Channel 9, just tweeted this thing, saying that driving south on North Market Street, don't turn left onto Fraser. Chattanooga Police Department officers giving out tickets to drivers who do after recent wrecks. So whatever you do, if you're driving south on North Market Street, do not turn left onto Fraser, because the Chattanooga Police Department officer is giving out tickets to drivers who do after recent wrecks. This is a public service announcement. Do not turn left onto Fraser if you're driving south on North Market. Do not. Now, I know I'm going to get arrested for saying that because I'm a cop blocker. It's true. I don't like it when they hand out tickets. I think it's a waste of time. I mean, think about that, handing out tickets. I mean, come on, people. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, we saw you were driving in a way we don't like, so we're going to hand out tickets. That's how it is. Sorry. Now, I don't hate cops either. I think they have a very useful place in society sometimes. But, you know, I mean, they're handing out tickets for people who aren't going exorbitantly fast. Is that the word I should use? I don't know. Who aren't going ridiculously fast. They're handing out tickets to people who are just, you know, going maybe 10 over. Big deal, 10 over. Come on. You know, sometimes they give out tickets to people who are just going with the flow of traffic. Just to get their quota up there. Cops, man. There's got to be a way to circumvent them, and that's my way of circumventing them. If you're going south on North Market, do not turn left onto Fraser. Do not, because there's a cop there who's handing out tickets as of 18 minutes ago. Because of recent wrecks, some people have crashed there. Thus, I must hand out tickets to everyone who turns left onto Fraser if they're heading south on North Market. So don't do it. Well, anyway, we're talking about the Meta Pro, which is a $3,000 handset that aims to bridge the gap between the fully immersive virtual reality tools, such as Oculus Rift, and the relatively more subtle wearable devices like Google Glass, according to TechCrunch. The Meta Pro is up for sale online now, but it won't start shipping to customers until this summer. So, TechCrunch actually stopped by Meta's Portola Valley, California headquarters to get an early look at the latest prototype of the device. And they have a video of that over at TechCrunch, but there are any number of uses for the Meta Pro, as the company has a software developers kit that allows developers to create programs to use with the glasses. In TechCrunch's visit, Meta CEO and founder Miran Gribetz showed TechCrunch how the glasses can be used in place of traditional CAD software to design a 3D printed object using only your hands. The writer of the article was told that the final version of the glasses will ship to users this summer, will be a bit lighter and more sleek in the design, but this prototype gives a good idea of the core technology and capabilities. Meta, which makes wearable devices with augmented reality technology, is a particularly ambitious breed of startup, a staff of fewer than 50 employees squaring away against competition from the likes of Google and Apple. But then again, it took a good deal of ambition for Gribetz to set out a few years ago on his own with the goal of building real-life version of something that had previously only been seen in movies such as Iron Man. It will be exciting to see how this technology continues to develop as more people play with it. And it looks like this is going to be the accepted technology pretty soon, these augmented reality glasses and goggles. Now how that works is it projects a 3D object into the real world. Not so that other people can see it, but just so you can see it. It's a 3D object that you see through your screen. If you download an app called Augment on your Android or iOS device, you can check that out. Just print out a marker and you'll see. Or if you have a gyroscope, you don't need a marker, but you get the idea. It's cool stuff. It's really cool stuff. So I would recommend checking that out. Augmented reality is one of the cooler technologies out there right now. And anybody can use it who has a smartphone. Anybody at all. It's great. Well, Rolls-Royce is giving out drone ship bots. Well, at least they're producing them, which will rule tomorrow's oceans and shipping containers, according to TechCrunch. If you're rooting for the drone team, then chalk up another win. Rolls-Royce is working on unmanned cargo ships that will roam the Earth's oceans packed with crates of goods, controlled by captains safe on shore using virtual reality facilities to pilot their fleets. In other words, tomorrow's salty tales of ghost ships with no one left on board could be all too verifiable and hardly cause for alarm. Bloomberg reports on the project, which aims to make the seafaring shipping industry safer, less expensive, and easier on the environment. The market is worth $375 billion annually, and despite our mastering of flight, we still ship 90% of traded goods over the waves, according to the article. These automated versions would aim to make that huge volume safer and more efficient, but of course it'll have to contend with a variety of concerns first, including worries about safety and labor concerns from uniforms and workers. Stripping all those accommodations needed by fleshy human labor from the cargo liners would clean up even more room for cargo, according to Rolls-Royce's early designs, while also making them 5% lighter, with 12 to 15% less fuel burn per trip. Plus, you're saving up to $3,300 per day in crew costs, which currently make up 44% of the total overall operating expenses of manned ocean-bound shipping. Before you get too excited there, though, Mr. Shipping Magnate, no. They're calling us shipping magnates. Know that these things are currently probably at least a decade out from being anywhere near sea legal, and the largest union on the sea vocally opposes the idea outright, saying that drone ships are no replacement for humans' intellect and perception. I disagree, actually. Plus, if these ever replace our current waterborne shipping mechanisms, future generations will never experience the coming-of-age stories like the ones depicted in David Mamet's Lake Boat. But, yeah, I mean, come on. Think about that, though. Having a ship that doesn't need people. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a wonderful idea. Because, well, for one, you have to pay for the people, so it makes it cheaper. For another, it's lighter, because, people don't have to be on board. And for another, even more, it's just great all around. Because these guys, they're not needing to be on a ship. They have a virtual reality captain. But the unions, fighting progress yet again, trying to keep technology from moving forward. Despite all the cautioning, however, there's no question that logistics communities are hungry for this kind of automation, since it means cheaper prices overall, decades down the road, plus faster and more efficient delivery from warehouse to customer, especially important as more shopping moves online. People will not accept the coming shipping bots readily, but that doesn't mean that they won't still arrive eventually, and the waves will be waiting. I can't wait. I think drones and automated things are awesome. And plus, think about this. That opens up a whole new market for fixing them. Because drones do break. Don't forget that. Here's something I don't get. Why don't we have automated McDonald's by now? It'd be so much cheaper. You wouldn't have to pay wages. You wouldn't have to bother with all that. You could just have automated McDonald's. Why not? I mean, there's not much to keep them from making it automated. You just call in a maintenance guy every week or so and have him fix the stuff if it breaks. It's not a big deal, really. I think an automated McDonald's is a wonderful idea. I think automated everything is a good idea. But fortunately, we here at Copperhead 1240, WSDT Saudi Daisy, we work in an industry that cannot be automated. You can't automate entertainment. I mean, you can't automate the news. Well, you can automate the news, but somebody has to write this stuff. So, I'm glad to work in this industry, that's for sure. Because I wouldn't want to be taken away by some robot. But when it comes to the smaller wage jobs and that sort of thing, really there's no reason not to have drones to do it. The only real argument is that is the children. Ooh, who's going to give them jobs now? Well, they can find their own jobs. Manufacturing drones. Problem solved. But anyway, LaCie now is Seagate's consumer-facing subsidiary. Remember LaCie from way back in the day? They had drives and floppy disk drives, and they had zip disks. Heaven help you, zip disks. LaCie is a cool company, but now they're owned by Seagate, and they've developed this thing. You won't believe this. 5 terabyte drive, according to ZDNet. 5 terabyte drive. I'm not kidding. That's huge. Well, Seagate's new 5 terabyte drive, according to ZDNet. LaCie, which is now Seagate's consumer-facing subsidiary, announced a 5 terabyte desktop drive. Tip of the hat to Storage Newsletter. The unit is available in its 5 big Thunderbolt series, the 2 big Thunderbolt series, and the D2 Thunderbolt series. The drive is reportedly a 5-platter, 7200 RPM unit, which remains unannounced by parent Seagate. LaCie can now offer up to 25 terabytes of capacity in a desktop enclosure. Man, that's fast and huge. The capacity increases have slowed from the torrid 40 to 50% growth from the first decade of the 21st century. 25% growth is better than nothing, but the slowing makes it faster for flash drives to compete with the disk. This may be the beginning of a trend. Drive vendors like the higher margins that they get with add-on storage compared to volume OEM sales, especially since early production is typically volume constrained until processes get nailed down. Expect to see Western Digital and Toshiba follow Seagate's lead. Of course, Western Digital's HGST unit, much of the old IBM disk business, is theoretically shipping. Haven't seen any in the wild yet, and a 6 terabyte server drive. 6 terabytes, man. It will be interesting to see if they offer it as a desktop unit from their G-Tech brand. But think about that. 5 terabytes. 1 terabyte is 1,024 gigabytes. That's an amazing amount of storage. And people use it up all the time. I mean, I have a 500 gigabyte drive in my computer, and it's not big enough. Not near big enough. I run out of room all the time. So a drive like this is just like mind-boggling. To have a drive that's 5 terabytes in a single drive. Man, I can't even imagine. Whew, it's mind-blowing. But anyway, I mean, think about that. 5 terabytes in one single drive. It's crazy. I mean, you could see desktops now shipping from, say, IBM ThinkCentre, or Lenovo ThinkCentre, for a 5 terabyte drive just enclosed in there. I wonder how much it costs. They haven't said that yet, but I'm sure it's quite a bit. It's probably, a few $100s for the thing. Because usually you'll spend about $80 for a terabyte drive, so this would be a little bit more expensive than that. Just a little bit, probably about $250 you'd be paying for this. So that's a good bit of money, but anyway. Why is Nokia making Android phones? Is a question that The Verge is asking. Relations between Microsoft and Google are as icy as Nokia's hometown as Espoo, Finland, which made it a bit of a shocker when Nokia, by far Microsoft's largest mobile partner, dropped an Android-based bomb on Windows Phone this week with the introduction of its X handsets. Just weeks away from being swallowed by Microsoft, Nokia is releasing 3 cheap Android-powered devices that are designed to appeal to the mass market. All 3 are low-end models that won't compete with an iPhone 5S or Samsung Galaxy S5, I should say. Instead, they're positioned as smartphones targeted at the millions of people globally who are currently switching away from feature phones. Windows Phone has seen a bit of a success at this end of the market, and Nokia dominates sales of handsets running it. So why the switch to Android, and why now? It's a question that Nokia has largely avoided answering all this week. So now they're finally doing it, I guess. So why? Why did they make an Android phone? Nokia, you see, made the Nokia Lumia, which was Windows' flagship phone. Well, they still haven't clearly answered the question why. Nokia explains that its use of Android on its X series as a method to create devices that slot in between Asha, which is Nokia's low-end smartphone platform, and Windows Phone. The end goal, Nokia says, is to produce feeder handsets for its Lumia line of Windows phones, to get people into smartphones and feed them Microsoft services, and hopefully convince them to buy Windows Phone handsets down the line. It sounds like a reasonable approach until you take a closer look at the specifics. Nokia's X handsets include almost identical specifications to the popular Lumia 520 Windows Phone, with differences to the camera, storage, and navigation buttons. It's reasonable to guess that the X may be designed to replace Asha in the long term, but these first devices, shadows of the 520 running a different operating system, don't really address why they're not just running Windows Phone. Nokia's head of devices, Stephen Elop, is keen to downplay the idea that the X series is simply a stopgap solution until Microsoft can push Windows Phone further into the low end of the market. In an interview with The Verge this week, Elop welcomed Microsoft's hardware changes to the Windows Phone 8.1, but admitted that Nokia needed devices in an area where Windows Phone cannot yet fully compete in. At those lower price points where Windows Phone does not yet exist or Lumia experience can be delivered, we needed something that could be delivered there without taking on an obligation or building yet another ecosystem, says Elop. So with Android open source project, we clearly get the benefit of the app compatibility. Elop also stressed this strategy is a complement to the Windows Phone, recognizing that there are price points and markets that are better served using some different technologies, he said. It might well look like a complement, but with similar hardware specs for the low end where Windows Phone is already growing and taking a bigger market share, it appears that X and Windows Phone are on a collision course. Nokia's Lumia 520 is the most popular Windows Phone, and now it has an almost identical competitor that runs Android apps. Microsoft, through its Nokia acquisition, will have to decide whether to abandon X entirely or try to strike a tricky balance between developing apps and services for its Android-powered X handsets, all while pushing Windows Phone. So Nokia seems to have shot themselves in the foot, really, when it comes right down to it, because they're pushing the Windows Phone, but they're also pushing Android. It's like, which do you want? Imagine if Apple came out with a Windows machine, just out of nowhere. That would make no sense at all. Why would Apple ever make a Windows machine? And that's kind of what Nokia has done now. It seems like they've shot themselves in the foot. They made a pretty decent, actually, Android device, and it's sort of competing with its other device. It's like competing with itself. I don't know why in the world they thought this was a good idea, but I guess Nokia knows what they're doing. I mean, Nokia has been really good at making smartphones for forever. Or handphones? Making cell phones for forever. Handphones. Got myself a hand phone. I can't wait till there's a hand phone where you hold your hand up to your head and you talk like that. Like a spy, you know? Like James Bond who says, take your finger down from your ear. I want one of those where the speaker is like in two fingers and you hold them up to your ear and the microphone is like in your palm so you can talk into your palm like a spy. That'd be awesome. I hope they develop that like a Bluetooth handset. That'd be so cool. For what it's worth, though, this wasn't a win for Google. Every time Nokia mentioned Android on stage at its event this week, it was quickly followed by a mention of Microsoft services for its X tablets. It almost felt like an apology and a recognition that the two companies will soon be one. For Microsoft, the Nokia X has some benefits because it pushes the company's services and apps, but it's also a huge risk. While Windows Phone integrates Microsoft services seamlessly, on Nokia X they're simply separate experiences and apps. The support for Android apps allows X owners to simply visit an app store and use whatever services they want. Google services won't be officially supported unless the search giant modifies its own apps to list them in Nokia's store, and that's highly unlikely. But X owners can still opt to go elsewhere outside of the Microsoft-backed OneDrive, Outlook.com, and Skype apps that are bundled. Regardless of whether Microsoft will quickly abandon X to a footnote of history, of Nokia's history, the research and development that went into it appears to be one of the key reasons that the acquisition is even happening. With devices that come dangerously close to overlapping, Windows Phone in the low end, Microsoft couldn't afford to let its primary Windows Phone partner, a company that ships over 90% of all Windows Phone devices, move to Android without exercising some control. And Windows Phone, like, I don't know why people use Windows Phone. Like, I can get why people buy iPhones, but I can't get why people would buy a Windows Phone. Maybe you can explain that to me, dear listener, if you have a Windows Phone. Why did you buy a Windows Phone and not an Android phone or an iPhone? I don't get that. Can you explain that to me? I don't mean to be harsh. I don't. I mean, I respect your choice. It just seems a little bit silly to me. That's all. But maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Maybe you can explain to me why you bought that Windows Phone. You can email me, GenerationZ1240@gmail.com, or @GenerationZ on Twitter. Why did you buy that Windows device? I'd love to know. I'd love to know your position on that. It's interesting to me. But I actually only know one person who has a Windows Phone. He's a good friend of mine, a Canadian, and he has his Windows Phone. He likes it. He likes it well enough. He says it works fine. So that's good. But yeah, you know, I just whatever works for you is I'm happy for you. It's just that it seems like Android phones are so much more featureful. Another Another Canadian friend of mine, I remember he had this Android phone that has this perpetually cracked screen. It was this screen that was the most haggard screen you'd ever see. It was just cracked. It looked like it had been struck by lightning. But it worked just fine. It was hilarious, though. He had this phone that just looked like it had been run over by a truck, and it still worked. You won't see that from an iPhone, I can guarantee you. But anyway. Oh yeah, we were just talking about Stephen Ilop, or Ilop. He's a Finnish gentleman. He's been handed the keys to the Xbox division at Microsoft, though. No kidding, according to MCV UK. Former Nokia CEO Stephen Ilop has been appointed as head of Microsoft's devices and studios business. The appointment was expected following rumors earlier this month. Current devices and studios boss Julie Larson-Green is to assume the new role of Chief Experience Officer for the Applications and Services Group. You are all in great hands with Stephen, Larson-Green said in a memo obtained by TechCrunch. Already we've shared a lot with him and his LT from Nokia regarding all the fantastic people, teams, and products in DNS. I also know that many of you are looking forward to welcoming the Nokia team and working more closely with them. Now, adding the Nokia team to the Microsoft team, specifically the Xbox team, has interesting connotations. If they can implement these Nokia devices, or rather the Nokia mobile technologies, in somehow with video games playing, I'd be interested to see how that would work out. And keep in mind, video games sort of do integrate with technology as a whole, because usually things that are developed for games end up being used more widely elsewhere, or vice versa. So it's kind of fun to see. But as we are winding down, I should mention that coming up at 1 is Nuganomics.com with David Toulis, his show where he talks about local economy from a free market perspective. Always a fun show. I love listening to it on my way home, and sometimes while I'm hanging out here at the office too. It's a good show where he talks about local economy from a free market perspective. He does it for, 2 hours, isn't it? 2 hours he talks about local economy. I couldn't do it. He manages to make it interesting. I don't know how, but he does it. He talks about local economy. What you got lined up for us, Mr. Toulis? You got nothing? That's not good. No, he's always got something lined up. I don't know how he does it, but he's always got all this stuff lined up, and I am envious. I'm not even kidding. I'm envious. You got all these papers and everything, and I have the one file on my computer, and you managed to make all these files interesting. I don't know how you do it, man, but props to you, man. Well, that just about does it for Generation Z anyway. Don't forget to email the show, generationz1240@gmail.com, and at generationz1240 on Twitter. Don't forget NASCAR on Sundays, Sunday, where we cover NASCAR here on Sundays here on Copperhead 1240, WSDT Saudi Daisy. Thanks for listening, everybody. And don't forget Nuganomics.com coming up at 1 with David Toulis. And drive carefully out there. Remember, do not turn left onto Fraser Avenue on North Market Street going south. See ya.
Hey, Russell.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, sorry I'm not garrulous.
Oh, you're fine. Did you hear about that, though? There's people pulling over, a cop is pulling over people turning left onto Fraser Avenue, coming south on North Market Street because people have wrecked turning left onto Fraser.
Is there a sign that says you can't do that?
No, not that I could determine. He's just pulling over people who are turning left.
Well, how were things?
Things are going great.